Hello student, I am Professor Smita Jha from the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, and I am here to discuss research methodology with ontological aspect of research. In the previous lecture of mine, I have already discussed that what is research, what is the research philosophy, and also the various paradigms of a research. While discussing various paradigms, we have discussed that there are three basic paradigms, that is epistemology, ontology, and research methodology. But then there are other school of thoughts related to various paradigms like epistemology and ontology and methodology, like positivism, anti-positivism, constructivism, interpretativism, axiology. Now, this is the high time to know the various aspects of ontological research. Let us see what is there in ontology. The term ontology is derived from the Greek words ontos, which means being, and logia, which means a study of or discourse. Therefore, ontology can be understood as the study of being or the discourse on the nature of existence. Ontology is the branch of philosophy that is concerned with existence and reality. It delves into questions about the nature of reality or truth. So, questions like what is existence, what is there, and what is the nature of existence. These are the basic, questions related to ontology, because a research is nothing but the exploration of existing knowledge with new dimension. So, if epistemology is the knowledge, ontology is the justification of that knowledge. That what is the nature of that knowledge? So, for a researcher, it is very important to know all these aspects of research paradigm. Ontology and epistemology are essential branches of philosophy that address fundamental questions about the nature of reality and how we come to know and understand that reality. We often come across these terms in the world of research. These two factors highly determine the selection of our research methods and methodology. Now, here, let us dive deep into the understanding of meaning of these terms and their significance, because epistemology, ontology, and methodology, these three are, you can say, interrelated to make a research relevant. Now, in all areas of research and across disciplines, the way a researcher studies, the subject really matters. And it is important that you as a researcher evaluate the work you pursue, you do, the evidence you offer as a researcher, and the claims that you produce. Now, before conducting research in any field, a researcher must understand the different basic concepts used in research methodology. And as I said repeatedly, that you are pursuing a research not randomly. There should be some basic facts, some knowledge to develop a research design. Now, most postgraduate students, research students, find it difficult to get their heads around some of the theoretical concepts, especially in humanities, and issues which they come across as they begin their research journey. Even with the knowledge, it is very difficult to foreground the research, subject, paradigm, or the process of research. Now, amongst these concepts and issues are ontology and epistemology. These philosophical assumptions or positions are a basic component of any postgraduate research, and as such need to be clearly set out at the beginning of the methodology chapter. Now, here I just want to help you, the new researcher or the inexperienced research student, to understand in easy terms what ontology and epistemology mean, what their variants are, and how they relate to research. Because as I said, that epistemology is knowledge, so the basic knowledge, the rational, the belief that you have, So you are constructing the thought of research on that, and ontology is something that justify your existing knowledge, pushing you towards a new study. Determining the validity of your study means as a researcher is anchored on your research paper's methodology. So it is very important to have an idea of research methodology properly. Now, according to Somek and Levin, the great researcher, a research methodology is both the collection of methods or rules as a researcher you apply to your research, as well as the principles, theories, and values that support your research approach. Now, in simple word, a research paper's methodology or a dissertation's methodology section must shed light on how you were able to collect or generate your research data, so resources, material, and demonstrate how you analyze them. Like literature review, that is a significant task. So, how you have decided to go for the literature review to get meaningful resources, because throughout the research process, your energy, your time is very, very important. Now, ontology, as we all know, is the study of being, something that is there and is concerned with what is, that is, the nature of existence and the structure of reality as such, or what it is possible to know about the world. Now, the Sage Online Dictionary of Social Research Method defines ontology as a concept concerned with the existence of and relationship between different aspects of society, such as social actors, cultural norms, racial issues, and other social structure. Now, an example of an ontological question in research would be, does a single objective reality exist that can be studied independently from human perception? Now, this essentially asks whether the researcher believes in a fixed, true reality, or if reality is constructed through individual interpretations reflecting the different ontological stances of realism, means a single reality versus constructivism. That I said these are the school of thought. Constructivism, which is multiple reality constructed through interaction. Other examples of ontological questions in research could include, do emotions exist as tangible entities, or are they social constructs? Is gender a fixed biological category or a socially constructed concept? When studying a disease, are the underlying mechanisms purely biological or also influenced by social factors? Because we have several researchers on, pandemic. In a study of organizational culture, is there a single unified culture within a company, or are there multiple subculture? Now, the key points about ontology in research are, first, focuses on the nature of reality. Ontology is concerned with what is considered real within the context of research study. If God is there, epistemology says, knowledge says, then how God is there? That is the reality. And this is ontology. Secondly, impacts research design. The researcher's ontological assumption will influence the methods they choose to investigate a topic. Third, common ontological positions. Realism, that is, objective reality exists. Constructivism, reality is socially constructed. Critical realism, a reality exists but is partially understood. Now, it is important to understand these two branches of philosophy to understand the different ways we conceptualize our world and how that impacts us and the way research is conducted. These precise conceptualizations in many ways separate the natural sciences from the social sciences. So, ontology is a branch of philosophy that studies assumptions about existence and definitions of reality. In a nutshell, it is the philosophical approach that studies what we consider to be real and what we don't. Because research is real, research should be real, or it answers the question, how do we see or think about reality? Or how do we decide what is real? Can there be something that is real for me as a researcher, but not real for you even as a researcher? Is what we consider to be real universal? That is, if it is real for me, it has to be real for you. And if so, how do we research that conclusion and consensus? That is, it refers to the way the world is seen to be and what can be assumed about the nature and reality of the phenomena that make up the world. Does the universe exist? Is there God? These questions can be sometimes difficult to answer. For example, we can say that we can make a logical conclusion based on the knowledge that we currently have that the universe most likely exists. But we cannot draw a similar kind of logical conclusion to answer the question about the existence of God. But does that make it unreal for a person who believes in God? Is there a screen on which you are reading this? Is there a sun? Are there trees outside your home? Can you tell if someone suffers from anxiety or depression? Can you say for sure if a person is experiencing deep emotions? It seems like some of these questions are easy to answer because we can use our five senses, sensical organs and logical reasoning to confirm or deny whether something exists or not. But it is difficult to make similar conclusions when we cannot either confirm or deny the existence of something or someone based on our five senses and logical reasoning. Anxiety could be very real for some people, even though we might not be able to see, because this is abstract. There are two types of ontology, objective or objectivism, and subjective or subjectivism. Let us know what is objective ontology or objectivism. Objectivism is the belief, that is the set of assumption and rationale. Belief is an external reality whose existence is independent of knowledge of it. The world exists as an independent object waiting to be discovered. Since the reality is objective, it is equally accessible to any observer that can be verified independently using our five senses and logical reasoning. Independently here means that different people, all having the same relationship to an object, make similar observations about it. Now, their observations should not be biased by their personal views or the context in which they are embedded. If we claim something exists or is real, other people should be able to verify its existence independently without any bias. If I claim that there are trees outside my home, others should be able to verify the accuracy or correctness of that claim. In that sense, it is a third-person point of view, or sometimes also referred to as extra-mental reality, that is, existing outside the mind of the researcher. If it is real, I should be able to see it. You should be able to see it. And anyone and everyone should be able to see it. Now, coming to subjective ontology or subjectivism, it is a belief that you cannot know an external or objective reality apart from your subjective awareness of it. What we agree exists for us, of, and in our intersubjective awareness. It is based on the ideas that social facts are as real as objective facts. That is, if subjective beliefs affect our behavior just like objective reality, why should social facts be any different from objective facts? So, subjectivists argue that there are many phenomena, such as thoughts, feelings, and social processes, that are difficult, if not impossible, to perceive using the five senses alone objectively. Additionally, many subjective experiences and interpretative processes produce understanding that can be far superior precisely because it is so difficult to objectively represent subjective experiences. Social phenomena, in particular, that is culture, would be unobservable if not for our capacity to experience and communicate intersubjectively. Furthermore, phenomena engaged subjectively are experienced differently depending on who is experiencing them and under what conditions they are perceived, good or bad mood, within one cultural context or another. In other words, it is the belief that knowledge of the world is subjective and that social reality only exists when we experience it and give it meaning. The general argument is that there are two types of reality, objective and subjective. Both are important and affect our understanding of our world differently. Both offer a unique aspect of reality that betters our understanding of the world. In certain situations, we rely on objective reality, while in others, subjective reality might make more sense. For example, we might rely on objective aspects of reality to find out the age of an ancient piece of art, but we might rely on subjective reality on deciding the worth of that piece of art. An example of an ontological stance in qualitative research would be a researcher studying the existence of grief, choosing a social constructionist ontology which assumes the meaning of grief is not fixed but is actively constructed by individuals based on their social context, culture, and personal experiences, leading them to focus on how participants actively interpret and make sense of their loss through interviews and narrative. Now, there are certain things that we can highlight, like focus on meaning making. A social constructionist ontology emphasizes the subject and socially constructed nature of reality, meaning the researcher would prioritize understanding how participants actively create meaning around their experience of grief rather than seeking a single objective truth about grief. And then qualitative method, a kind of approach, aligns well with qualitative methods like in-depth interviews or focus group, where researchers can explore the rich details of participants' perspectives on grief. Well, other examples of ontological instances in qualitative research like realist ontology. The researcher is studying the impact of a new educational program might assume a realist ontology, believing that there is an objective reality about the program's effectiveness that can be discovered through research, while talking of the critical realist ontology, which is a study exploring the social factors influencing health disparities. A researcher might adopt a critical realist ontology, acknowledging that while there is a real world, our understanding of it is always mediated by social context and power dynamics. So, ontological methodology in qualitative research, specifically with a phenomenological approach, focuses on understanding and describing the subjective experiences of individuals. It guides research design, data collection, and analysis, emphasizing the co-construction of meaning and the acknowledgement of diverse subjective realities. Now, the place of ontology in research is concerned with understanding the fundamental nature of the things or concepts that researchers investigate. Now, there are some important key points that as a researcher you can consider and you should know about it. Realism. Realists believe that there is an objective reality that exists independently of human perception or interpretation. They aim to discover and describe this reality as accurately as possible in their research. Idealism. An idealist, on the other hand, holds that reality is fundamentally mental or subjective in nature. It asserts that the external world, including physical objects and events, derives its existence from the mind or consciousness. In idealism, the mind is considered the primary source of reality. If we talk of constructivism, it also acknowledges the subjectivity of human experience. But it doesn't necessarily claim that the external world does not exist. Instead, constructivism focuses on the idea that individuals and groups construct their own interpretations of reality based on their unique perspectives and experiences. Pragmatism, which are less concerned with abstract questions about the nature of reality and instead focus on what works in practice. They are interested in the utility and practical consequences of different perspectives and belief. So, the ontological position a researcher adopts can shape their research design, the methods they use, and their interpretation of research results. It's important for researchers to be aware of their ontological assumptions, as these assumptions shape the philosophical foundation of their research. So, ontology is the study of being. These are the aspects of ontological, research, a study of being, existence. So, it's a branch of philosophy that explores the nature of reality and how things relate to each other. That is to say, that throughout your research, you make an argument for what you are writing or you are standing. Means whatever the thesis statement you are posing, where that is epistemology, but ontology is the argument for justification. So, existence is one of the very important aspects of ontology, whether things exist and how, means knowledge exists and how they exist into basic categories of being. Foundational building of blocks means what relationships, how things that exist relate to each other, because your research is very cohesive, study or exploration. Cohesive means systematic. Consistency, categories, how entities are divided into the foundational building block of the world. And truth, what is truth or real? Because whatever the statement you are giving as thesis statement in your research, you need to justify it with the help of ontology. Ontology is nothing but a kind of discussion to justify your argument. Now, ontology is fundamental branch of philosophy and one of the oldest. It's closely related to metaphysics, but the exact relationship between the two disciplines is disputed. It also used in information science, in any area of research, machine learning, and now these are the age of artificial intelligence. So in AI, ontologies are computational models that enable automated reasoning. In machine learning, ontologies help models focus their capabilities. So ontology, as a branch of philosophy, is the science of what is, of the kinds of structures of objects, properties, events, processes, and relations in every area of reality. Ontology is often used by philosophers as a synonym of metaphysics, a label meaning literally what comes after the physics, means beyond the physical thing, a term used by early students of Aristotle to refer to what Aristotle himself called first philosophy. So, ontology seeks to provide a definite and exhaustive classification of entities in all sphere of being. The classification should be definitive in the sense that it can serve as an answer to such questions as what classes of entities are needed for a complete description and explanation of all the goings on in the universe. What classes of entities are needed to give an account of what makes true all truths? It should be exhaustive in the sense that all types of entity should be included in the classification, including also the types of relations by which entities are tied together to form larger wholes. So, the methods of ontology, henceforth in philosophical context, always used in the adequate sense, are the methods of philosophy in general. They include the development of theories of wider or narrower scope and the testing and refinement of such theories by measuring them up, either against difficult counterexamples or against the results of science. These methods were familiar already to Aristotle himself. In the course of 20th century, a range of new formal tools became available to ontologists for the development and testing of their theories. Ontologists nowadays have a choice of formal frameworks deriving from algebra, category theory, mereology, set theory, topology, in terms of which their theories can be formulated. And these new formal tools, along with the language of formal logic, can in principle allow philosopher to express intuitive ideas. Research is based on your intuition. Assumption you think based on your knowledge, and definitions in clear and rigorous fashion. And through the application of the methods of formal semantics, that is meaning, they can allow also for the testing of theories for logical consistency and completeness. So create effective representations. It is an advantage if one knows something about the things and processes one is trying to represent. We might call this the ontologist credo. The attempt to satisfy this credo has led philosophers to be maximally opportunistic in the sources they have drawn upon in their ontological explorations of reality and in their ontological theorizing. These have ranged all the way from the preparation of commentaries on ancient texts to reflection on our linguistic usages when talking about entities in domains of different types. In Gruber's definition of ontology, explicit refers to the manner in which a developer, means a researcher, carefully enumerates the types of concepts used and the constraints on their uses. Conceptualization refers to an abstract view of the world, consisting of the relevant concepts and the relationship among them that exist within a specific domain. Formal refers to specifications that are machine readable and have well-defined semantics, that is meaning and shared, refers to the conceptualization being agreed on and accepted by those working in a discipline. Based on this definition, an ontology's primary purpose is to represent the entities in a domain by providing sets of machine understandable statements and linking the descriptions and classifications of the terms and relationship among them. So what are the key benefits? Conceptual clarity. By explicitly defining relationship between concepts, mean the research concept, and ontology helps researcher to precisely identify and articulate the key elements within their research area. preventing ambiguity and misinterpretation, because ambiguity is very important. Your thought should be very clear. Data integration: when researchers use a shared ontology, they can combine material, data, or resources from different studies, enable large scale analysis and more robust conclusion to justify the argument. An improved communication, that is, a well developed ontology, facilitates clear communication among researchers by providing a common vocabulary for discussing complex concepts. That is why there should be less chance of ambiguity. Classification and categorization: ontologies allow for systematic classification of data, enabling researchers to group similar entities and analyze them effectively. And when we talk of knowledge discovery, by exploring the relationship within an ontology, researchers can identify new insight and patterns within their data. We may speak of automated reasoning also, because when integrated with appropriate software, ontologies can enable automated reasoning systems to make inferences and draw logical conclusions from the data and the resources. So, what are the important aspects if we talk of ontology in research? Domain specificity. An ontology should be tailored to their specific research area, because research is a focused study, capturing the nuances and unique terminology relevant to the field. And when we talk of formal definitions, concepts within an ontology should have clear and precise definitions to avoid misinterpretations. So, ontological positions, that is the nature of the world and existence position, assumption, objectivism, that reality exists independently of our beliefs or understanding. Reality can be observed directly and accurately. A clear distinction exists between our beliefs about the world and the way the world is. Only material or physical world is considered real. Social phenomena and their meanings cannot change. Events have causes and determined by other circumstances. The causal links between events and their causes can eventually be uncovered by science, that is objectivism. Life is defined in measurable terms rather than inner experience. Research is concrete. Notions of choice, freedom, individuality, and moral responsibilities are excluded. And constructionism, that is, external reality exists but is only known through human mind and socially constructed meanings. There is no shared social reality, only a series of different individual constructions of it. Reality is subjective. There exist only estimate or approximate observations or views of reality. If we talk of social phenomena, and their meanings are continually being accomplished by social actors. So, social phenomena and their meanings are produced through social interaction and are in a constant state of revision. Life is defined in estimate terms based on inner experiences of human, where choice, freedom, and individual responsibility are appreciated. With this, I conclude the discussion of ontological aspects of research, and we have seen that ontology is nothing but the reality of the whole scenario. If something that you are assuming, you have to justify it with your subjective attitude as well as objective attitude, making it real. Let us meet in next discussion. Till then, thank you.